Hello everyone, and welcome back to Misfits Racing League. My name is Strifium. Joining me as always is Unicorn, and we are here today for round 10 of Tier 2 action. It's France. How you doing, Unicorn?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Looking forward to seeing France in action again. Another excellent race on Tuesday, so I'm looking forward to seeing it in action again here in Tier 2 and Tier 1 this evening.
It's going to be a lot of fun, especially after what we got to witness this past Tuesday for EU. And of course, we'll take a look at the circuit. It's a very unique circuit. Sector 2 is basically flat out through the entirety. It's two very long straights. And the DRS plays a role majorly coming out of turn 6. Coming through turn 7, you can see the very long straight into that 8-9 section where we see a lot of overtaking happen into Sector 3. And of course, we'll take you through a lap once we get into the race. But before that, talk a little bit about where we've been this season already. Things kicked off in Australia. We've gone through Bahrain, Vietnam, China, the Netherlands, as well as, of course, Spain, Monaco, Azerbaijan, most recently my backyard, Canada. Now we're here for France, and then next week, of course, we have Austria. And it's a long season. We've had a lot of great racing, and there's still a ton more to come, because then we move into the second leg of what's happening for Misfits Season 3, and that, of course, kicks off with the British Grand Prix October 8th. You have Hungary, Belgium, Italy, Singapore, Russia, Japan, the US, Mexico, Brazil, and then, of course, we finish things off in Abu Dhabi. Now, let's take a look at who's on the grid for Tier 2 today. We have a little bit of an exchange, and I'll talk about it. Of course, we have Kai Bacchini and JJ over at Mercedes. JJ is currently kind of on the disabled list, if you will. So Dirk Chocolate is going to be back today. He's filling in over there. A2K has now dropped down out of his seat at Ferrari. This happened very, very shortly before the race. And now Lamp has taken over a full-time seat with Yasko for the Scuderia. Gadwin and Liam for Red Bull, of course. Skybits and Little Bear with Ali Avci and Undertaker for Renault. And then you have Adrian and Wisp for AlphaTauri. Now, Robbo had Itzamax last week as his teammate. That was Itzamax's final race. Of course, now we have Extreme 1409, who was, you saw last week, racing for Alfa Romeo. He is now transferred to Racing Point. He is now transferred to Racing Point, and Joss, who began the season full-time over at Alpha, has now returned to his seat at Alfa Romeo full-time. However, today, he will not be present for the race. Crampy and Max Inkster, of course, the dynamic duo over at Haas, with Domi and Squid rounding out this grid for Williams. And I'm very excited about today's races because EU was absolutely fantastic. Let's take a look at the standings. Of course, this championship currently being led by none other than the Mercedes, Kai Bacchini, 103 points, the first driver on the list to crack the 100 mark. Domi in the Williams in second, and that is Liam, the current reigning Tier 2 champion, in third position for Red Bull. And it's a Mercedes-led championship at the moment, but the Red Bulls are not too far behind. So we'll just have to see how things play out. Now, a couple things to note. Houdini dropped a multitude of order positions after last week's race due to post-race penalties. And then, of course, you can see there Extreme transfers to Racing Point, and C-Joss is back at Alpha full-time. There was a multitude of penalties, but stewards want to remind, keep it clean, guys. Keep it clean. And with all of that, Unicorn, I think we're just about set to go here into some
we are indeed
racing action. Very excited for this.
Yeah, 100%. It's always nice to see, these more open tracks, like we said on Tuesday, that the large runoff areas rather than just closed in walls. This is, the most open these drivers have been allowed for about the past month, realistically, with the last 3 races being fairly tightly walled circuits. Obviously, Canada are a little bit more open than maybe Baku and Monaco, but France is really where we can let these guys loose. Overtaking is aplenty around here, and I'm sure we'll see that in full force this evening.
Oh, I definitely think so. Definitely think so. And we'll have to see what kind of role the safety car can play around here in Paul Ricard in Le Castellet, France. It's the French Grand Prix. Qualifying 18 minutes, of course, for these drivers. Ooh, and that looks like a little bit of doom and gloom right there, if I've ever seen it here. I want to see rain. I wanted to see rain last week for our Canadian races, but it didn't come.
But like you're saying here, it is possibly the darkest we've seen it in a long time. Default tire, though, is the soft, so the game right now not dictating that it's wet enough for the inters at the moment, whether the drivers are going to have to take advantage of a weather forecast and start setting laps almost immediately here, because if it is going to rain later in the session, obviously now is the fastest time to set a time.
We'll just have to see here. Everyone currently fitted on those soft compound tires. We'll have to see what kind of strategies these drivers want to deploy here around Paul Ricard today as well. Looks like A-Lord has had an issue. Has left the session. So getting him back in. 19 drivers on the grid. We'll go through it with you. Maxim B, Kai Bacchini, Extreme, Adrian, A-Lord, aka Aliavci. You have Skybits, Jones, Domi, as well as Dirk Chocolate, Cotters, Liam, Wisp, Gadwin, Max Inkster, Crampy, Lamp, Squid, Yasko, and Houdini.
Yep. And there's a few cars now leaving the pit lane. I think it's the Haas.
Is that Max Inkster? Or is it Crampy? I think they had a race to see who can get out first, and it looks like Crampy won. Looks like the track might be damp right now. Like it just finished raining.
And there's a Haas completely cutting the corner there.
Max Inkster is battling his teammate for TV time right now, I think is what we're seeing unfold here. He wasn't having it. No, it's appearing like it will be Max Inkster in the number 69 Haas, coming through turns 8 and 9 right now. He will be the first driver to set a lap time here.
Yeah, so Freeware with a weather report there. Dry race, but we are going to see some rain in qualifying. So basically a shortened qualifying session here, it would seem, because those drivers that are going to get these lap times done on the soft tyres, it's going to be vastly quicker than those who are getting it done on the inters, etc.
For sure. So dry race, which I'm sure will be a sigh of relief for everybody, as Max Inkster now comes through the final turn here. He has that red track map right now as a result of his major cut down through 5 and 6, but we'll have to see what he's able to do when he crosses the line here. And it looks like he's actually not going to be able to get a time through at all. The game has decided to say no sir, so it will in fact be his teammate Crampy, of course, running that Haas down through turn 2, and the raindrops have started. And Skybits now has joined the session, so that's good. And it looks like he's the solo McLaren today.
Yeah, a little bit not making it today for whatever reason, but this rain now is going to throw a real spanner in the works, especially for the likes of Max Inkster, who's invalidated here. This could be the only opportunity, as Crampy gets a little bit of a slipstream off his teammate, to set a time on dry tyres as the rain is coming down. So those who invalidate on this soft compound, or dry compound I should say, might be in for a good bit of luck, as Max Inkster gives his teammate another slipstream down into turn 10. So it's going to be interesting to see what sort of time Crampy can pull out here on the soft and how that compares to the times we see later in the session. If we do see times later in the session, you can see pretty much everyone out on track right now.
Yeah, very interesting strategy by the Haas drivers. And we'll have to see if the stewards want to do anything about that in the future. But it's going to be Crampy setting that first lap time here. It's going to be a 128.845. Now, the thing here is the rain has started to come down, and this is going to shake up qualifying massively. Gadwin,
Absolutely.
a 129.564 in the Red Bull. Extreme, a 130.1.
Yeah, Kai Bertini's about to cross the line. And It's a 128.7 from the Mercedes. That puts him on provisional pole. But so far, Crampy's time still holding strong in second place. Dark Chocolate and the other Mercedes are 129.6. Liam are 129.3. So both the Red Bulls in the top 5 at the moment. Lamp are 129.7.
Liam last week, of course, he had a very difficult race. He had that issue on entry into the pit lane, causing him to get into a spin coming out of turn 14, and then it was Adrian who drove through into him, coming through that wall of champions chicane, and it ended the Canadians' race around home. Very unfortunate. So an axe to grind today here around Paul Ricard.
Yeah, Domi, interesting enough, a 129.5, but he's done that on the mediums, which has put him into 6th place. So I'm interested to see how his strategy plays out here this evening. Obviously sitting second in that championship. He'll want to, chip away at Kai Bocchini's lead here in France.
Undoubtedly.
And we've got Dirk and Liam going very slowly down into turn 10, just letting cars by. Very peculiar. I thought there was been an incident, but they are just trundling along very slowly there.
A lot of drivers getting those laps in now. Skybits is on an invalidated lap. It appears it was his flyer as well. He's not going to be too thrilled about that.
Yeah, Houdini. He's just rounding the final corner. It's turn 15. And it's not going to be provisional pole. It's a 132 flat from the Renault.
Gaylord appears to be on a lap of some kind here. No time set. No ERS deployment coming out, but he's set a purple sector 1 here. So he's the fastest car on circuit right now through sector 1. Squid's on a flyer in the Williams, and we'll jump to him real quick as he's coming through down into turns 5 and 6.
Yeah, he's following his teammate with the medium tire choice here. And it is still raining right now, so the track is only going to get worse, we can imagine, here in qualifying. Obviously, we're expecting a dry race, so not only are the tyres right now not going to be optimum after a few minutes of this rain continuing, but the setups as well. These are dry setups on these cars, presumably targeted for the race and obviously the beginning of qualifying, so the likes of Squid, who are setting their lap times maybe a little bit later than they should have or would like to have, now maybe you're going to struggle, as the likes of Adrian and Lamp are coming back out for more attempts here despite the rain. Ooh. As Squid invalidates on the outside of turn 11 on the exit.
Yeah, not going to be happy about that at all. Tricky thing, Liam and Domi, actually, excuse me, Domi, in P6, he set that time, that 129.5, on those medium compound tires, and the circuit is not looking like it's going to get any quicker. He could be in a very good position come race start on those tires. He's going to have to start the race on those tires as well. That's a very good position for him. Gadwin's getting on the greens. He's going on these intermediate compounds, it would seem, and he's just switching back and forth, playing around, it would seem, now as well. But yeah, Domi's calling it. Yeah, he's calling it. He said, no, it's not going to get quicker. What are you going to do?
Yeah, it's an understandable sentiment from the Williams. If the rain continues, he's right. It isn't going to get any faster. So the drivers here sort of locked in a deadlock. This could be our starting grid. Might bar a few changes maybe down at the bottom.
Well, the fantastic thing is we can see the gap to leader right now. And the gap to leader, even on these first runs, really isn't that bad here around France. Right now you have from first down to 5th, 8 tenths. And even then it extends pretty well into 9th position of up to a second. And you have drivers on mediums, and there's a lot of speed mixed in and around this grid right now that I think is going to play a massive role come race time. We're going to see a lot of position changes early on, I think. There's going to be a lot of potential for a safety car. There's going to be a lot of anxious drivers coming through turns 1 and 2. Going to be a very unique race start here, because now this qualifying really hasn't given these drivers any idea of where they're actually at, because nobody knows, well, was that lap on, you know, who had the best lap is now the big question on the, you know, and who had the best conditions. It's not as clear cut as you'd see in a dry qualifying session anymore, and I think there's going to be a lot of frustration for these drivers not getting the positions they wanted. Big lockup from Lamp coming down through into 8-9 there.
Yeah, it is really quite interesting, because obviously we've got Crampy, who had that slipstream off of his teammate, and he's now sitting in second place on the grid. So an excellent strategic call going out early and getting that in. Obviously, maybe it would have been different for the Haas squad had Max not invalidated his flying lap so early. But it's really benefited Crampy either way, whether it was the plan or not.
Yes, and of course, for those just tuning in, you are watching Misfits Racing League. It's Tier 2 action, round 10. Kai Bacchini, the current championship leader, on provisional pole here, and it's looking like it's going to be pole for good, as the circuit is now quite wet, and drivers not going to be able to do much improvement here on these dry compound tires.
Yeah, Squid's just started a flyer on fresh softs. And it'll be interesting to see how he fares out here. Yasko as well, just ahead of him, it would seem. So these pair Yasko already off the track, though. He looks like he's given up. But Squid cutting the corner. That's turn 3, and his qualifying hopes pretty much over here. I mean, he could try.
Sorry to interrupt there, Unicorn. Gadwin's coming through 8-9 right now. He's on some soft compound tires, and I'm really keen to see what the delta is going to be like for him when he crosses through into Sector 3 here, just as we approach. Oh, and he's definitely not improving. So you can see the circuit is now dead for these dry compound tires. You can't do anything with them. A couple drivers playing with the idea of going out on inters just for the fun of it, but a multitude of drivers retiring here in the session. Potters has come out. He's on the inters. Skybits as well ahead of him.
Yeah, I think for Skybits it makes a lot more sense than maybe it does for Codders, because he's behind a couple of drivers. As Squid spins, that's a lot of damage on the right-hand side of his front wing, but he's still intact, so he's going to be able to bring that car back to the pits. But yeah, again, further evidence that these dry compound tires completely rendered useless by the weather here. You can see all the retirements. Squid just not being able to control this car whatsoever. But Skybits, he might be able to beat the likes of A-Lord maybe and Jones. If he can set a good lap on the... He's not going to try it. He's retired from the session. It's not a crash. So yeah, I think this qualifying is pretty much set in stone here. Unless the likes of Adrian and Codders maybe just going out for a practice run on inters.
Yeah, I think a good chunk of this grid has just said, let's race. They want the rain to go away. Cotters slidey through turn 10, coming down through 11. Now you can see, struggling for traction right now. The rain has really made it difficult for these drivers. And of course, they're all going to be running those dry setups, those dry car configurations here, because the race, as far as we know, is going to be a clear running.
Yeah, and that's just not... This isn't what you plan for. You have 8 to 10 minutes of rain at the end of a qualifying session. You can't adjust your setup for that because of the Parc Ferme regulations, and that's, you know, going to cost those who didn't get in the best lap that they could have earlier on in the session. But we are going to see Codders now apparently do a flying lap in an Alfa Romeo on intermediate tyres, and this is probably going to be the best sort of benchmark we get for wet weather pace.
Well, he gives us something to talk about. Comes down into turn 3 here, using the inside curb as much as he can, but coming through 4, not getting as much of it, struggling for traction. Then you have coming through 5, getting a good chunk of the inside, and you can just see the slide coming out of the car right now, coming through turn 6. Difficult conditions to drive in, and it looks like it's just getting worse as the session progresses here.
Yeah, absolutely. This rain doesn't look like
it looks like the rain is getting heavier. Of course, the circuit's going to get more and more wet, but it looks like the rain itself is getting heavier, meaning that you could maybe improve, but we know he's not going to. All these times have been set, of course, for those just tuning in, on the soft compound tires. and it's going to be difficult to do anything better than what we've seen set so far.
Yeah, Squid is the only person here who's going to be able to gain a position, because if he sets a valid lap, he will jump Skybits on the grid at least. So Squid then wanting to start 18th rather than 19th. But
wanting to get as many of those positions as they can at whatever cost. Otter's just, he won't even finish. He just says none. No, done. Not even going to cross the line on that lap. But Squid on the outlap right now. There is 3 drivers left in the session. Kai Bacchini, your pole sitter, who hasn't decided whether to retire or just watch as the drivers set deltas in the pit lane. Cotters, who's just come in off of a wet run. And Squid, who's about to, I believe, begin a wet run. Kai Bacchini now calling it over at Mercedes. Yeah, he's done.
So there we go then. Squid, pretty much the last runner. Now that Cotters doesn't have time to set a flying lap, he's going to be the one person who is going to qualify in the wet. There goes Cotters. So Squid is now the one remaining person in this qualifying session as he comes out of turn 2 down towards turn 3. ERS still in full swing, so
the pressure cooker situation. We got 18 drivers on this grid now watching his lap here as he's the last driver to get one through. And they're probably getting a little impatient over there in the paddock. Saying, we want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And he knows everyone's eyes are on him, not just us. Everyone in the grid, everyone in the stream, he knows they're looking at him. So there is a lot of pressure on Squid here to do a semi-decent lap on these intermediate tyres. But he comes out of 9. Down towards turn 10, the long, fast right hand. How is this going to handle itself in these conditions? You can see him there having to slow down a little bit more than you probably would have in the dry. Now into another long right hand. That's turn 11. The late apex there. Not using anywhere near as much curbing. They're going to be very slippery, those red and white stripes at the edge of the track. And you can see him avoiding them as much as he possibly can. Out of 13, then into 14. It's the penultimate corner, still avoiding the curbs. Maybe a little bit too much, but into the final corner. And we are going to see a valid wet lap here. It's not going to be quick, but it is going to be enough to put him into 18th position. It's a 142 flat from Squid here at France.
And retiring the car there to finish us out here for this qualifying session. I imagine a lot of the drivers now going to be happy about that, but it was with purpose, that lap. You saw it. He jumped Skybits. He's now into 18th position. That is one slot ahead of where he may have began this race. Now, let's go through this grid. Kai Bacchini on pole position. That's Crampy in the Haas lining up next to him in second. And it's going to be Maxim there in third position, rounding out the top 3.
Yeah,
I didn't have any time to go through that grid at all. The game just stole it away from me.
But there we are, the sun's shining now as we enter the race day. Is that going to be the only rain we see this week?
I really hope not. Now Tier 1 needs to really, really stress, because I feel like I'm going to just tell Mikau to throw a wrench in the equation. Of course, it is dynamic. It's a roll of the dice, but one can only hope. We saw a little bit of rain. We saw what it did to the grid. We saw what it did to the drivers for those that went out. So now we're going to see the dry running. The drivers, big sigh of relief as soon as they see the sunshine, the clear skies here around Le Castellet. Around the Paul Ricard circuit here. Very happy to jump into this race.
Yeah, for sure. And now that we've got, like you said, maybe a little bit more jumbled up grid than we would have seen had it stayed dry throughout. We're interested to see how these guys fare as we go on to the formation lap.
Kai Bacchini on pole position. Somewhere where we have seen him before. and we've seen it go both ways through his time this season.
Yeah, we saw him in Australia qualify very well, and then crashed out of the race. But at the same time, like you said, he's leading the championship, so he's had the results as well to back up these qualifying, where he seems to be very strong.
Well, it's going to be a very unique race. 19 drivers on the grid. Let's talk about it. Kai Bacchini on pole position. Crampy lining up next to him on the front row. You have a Canadian second row. That's Maxim B in the Alfa Romeo, with Liam lining up next to him in the Red Bull. Gadwin the Finn in 5th position. That is a very good qualifying for him. He's on the softs behind his teammate here. We'll see if we can get some team dynamics out of the charging Red Bull team today. We have Domi there in 6th. Dirk Chocolate in a reserve role for Mr. The Funky JJ, of course, there in 7th position. Lamp in his new full-time role over for the Scuderia at Ferrari in 8th. Wisp in 9th. Cotters in 10th. Now you have Extreme over at Racing Point for a change in 11th. Adrian in 12th. Max Singster 13th. Houdini in a reserve capacity over at Renault in 14th position, with Yasko in 15th. Jones in 16th. Alord, Squid, and Skybits rounding out the final 3 racers on this grid.
Yeah, what a grid it is. 19 drivers, 27 laps, and we're just seeing the first few start to form up on this grid. And just a quick note on tyres. The top 10 only Domi on the mediums, and then outside of that, 12th down through 19th. Everyone bar Squid on the medium compound tyres, with Squid being the outlier, the only person on the grid on the hard compound tires.
I have to say real quick, Domi in a deadly race position on those medium compound tires. Definitely going to be keeping an eye on him, but of course, Unicorn, it's time to go racing.
Yep, here we go. The lights still playing havoc with everyone in a spectator role, but it's the RPM that we need to be looking at here. Revs are high, you can hear them, and away we go here at France. And Kai Bacchini getting a very nice start compared to Crampy on his right-hand side now. Maxime B holding on to 3rd, but there's a Haas further back, and a Renault as well. Alord. It's not Alord, it's Houdini and the Alfa Romeo of Cotters who have had an issue further back. But now further up the grid, Liam looking up the inside of Crampy into turn 3. Crampy already down 1 place from Maxime B. But there's a little bit of a train. You can see the Constantina effect. Now we've got Wisp going up the inside of Lamp after the turn 4 shenanigans that caused everyone to back themselves up, and it is going to be Wisp side by side now onto the long straight, and Lamp staying into 7th place, and it's now Wisp under threat from Extreme.
Sorry to cut in here, Unicorn, but Liam and Crampy going wheel to wheel down into 8-9 here. Liam on the inside coming through 8. Who's going to get the better turn through in 9? The Red Bull around the outside coming through 9 with a really good exit for both. This is a great charge from the Haas and the Red Bull right now in a fight for podium positions on the opening lap of this race, and they're still wheel to wheel coming down through 10. That's Crampy on the inside, and it looks like he's lost out to Liam for now. Who's that? That's Gadwin having a look as well, and Crampy is really exposed here to the Red Bulls, and they're into 3 and 4.
Yeah, now Domi very late into Gadwin, almost causing a much larger collision. Neither car damaged, and that leaves Crampy safe in P5 for now 3 places down from where he started.
Domi just took a 3-second time penalty. We saw it here on board with him. That's going to cost him. But it's a massive train right now in fight for podium positions. Crampy on the move. He's looking at the outside coming down through turn 1. How is it going to go for him in the Haas? Is he going to get a switch around on that Red Bull? No. He is not, and he really has to be careful with what he tries to do here, because that is, of course, the Williams of Domi barking up his rear, but Lamp has made it into the party as well. A little bit of a tap there, love tap there from the Ferrari on the rear of the Williams coming through 5. But this Ferrari is all over the Williams right now, and those soft tires have a lot of pace at the moment.
Yeah, and like you said, this is a huge train, and right now, if we got DRS enabled on the next lap, we are in for one hell of a treat at the start of this race, because this battling doesn't seem to be going anywhere now. Down into turns 8 and 9. Positional changes. It's Adrian and Dirk Chocolate side by side. Dirk not having a good race start. He's down 4 places at the moment. Can he get back the AlphaTauri, the mediums versus the Sauce, and it's Dirk back up into P10. You can see the traction lending him down into turn 10. The soft tires benefiting him pretty nicely there.
What a race start we've had here. Very
Absolutely.
tight racing all around this grid right now. Crampy is going to be looking to get that position back from the Finn. That's the Red Bull of Gadwin, of course. We're so accustomed to seeing him. And today he decided to go with the rest of the front runners. Normally you see Gadwin with an absolute monkey wrench of a strategy, but here he's on these softs. He's in a good running position, and right now he's really costing Crampy some position or some pace to perhaps catch up with Liam or Maxim B and perhaps get into that second position where he began this race. But he has not had a fantastic race start. Here you can see he's dropped 3 positions, and Skybits is also made out like a bandit. He's moved up 7 positions here in this race.
Yep, and now Crampy, Gadwin maybe a little bit wide through turn 4, and it's costing him. You can see Crampy just stuck, like you said, behind this Rebel, struggling to get past, but Gadwin is doing a perfect job at just tail gunning for Liam ahead, who's in those podium positions, but he's fallen off a little bit from the rear of Maxime B, as well as Kai Bicini, who's still holding on to the lead of this race. But now it's Crampy past the other Red Bull. He's now into 4th place and is free to go and chase Liam. But Adrian picking up a 3-second time penalty. But I thought it might have been Crampy, who just took a lot of the inside curb coming out of turn 9.
Haas boys are going to be happy about that. Watching in the chat, Domi right now going to be looking for Gadwin as well. One thing to talk about here, Kai Bicini currently leading this race by 1.5 seconds in the Mercedes. We saw him in Canada and what he can do when he's at the front of a grid. He absolutely took off, and he's going to be looking to make it 2 in a row here. First in Canada, now again here around Le Castellet, Paul Ricard circuit, of course, and it's going to be Domi real tight to the rear of Gadwin right now. Maxim B currently in 2nd position, 1.5 away from Kai. Has the other Canadian Liam not too far behind him, 1.5 seconds. But now Domi moved to the inside from the Williams. He has the DRS on Gadwin. Gadwin has a little bit of DRS for himself, though. There's a bit of an exchange, a little bit of contact coming through too, and this is going to open up Gadwin big time. That is still Lamp, not too far behind here, not giving these drivers a lot of opportunity to make any mistakes. He is breathing down their necks coming into turn 5.
Yeah, and you might have just seen it in the distance. Crampy wide out of turn 2, and that off track is giving him his first 3-second time penalty. As you see, Domi and Gadwin as well taking a lot of the outside of this track. So track limits here, fairly easy to violate, but here goes Lamp. DRS ERS enabled to try and get past Gadwin. It's Crampy and Liam. They're exchanging places as well, and it's Liam spinning off. He's stopped it before the wall, so no damage on that Red Bull, but he is going to lose a whole host of positions due to the proximity of all these drivers on this grid, and he's shot right back down into 14th place.
Well, at the very least, this time it didn't cause him a terminal DNF the way it did in Canada. He's all right. He's back racing, but of course, we're back to the front. Lamp is into 5th. Gadwin is in 6th position now, and that means it's Domi in 4th on medium compound tires, and Crampy is only less than a second ahead. It's currently 8/10 the gap, and it is currently dropping after all of that confusion.
Yeah, I know some people had Domi listed as a good driver to place your bets on for this race. He's got a very impressive time trial time, as we see Gadwin into the pits then. The first person
very
of
early.
the front runners to hop in. Yeah, 3 laps old. And hopefully Liam, he's not coming into the pits. If he needed damage, that could have cost the Red Bull guys a lot of time. But he is just coming on for fresh medium. So very interesting strategy from the Red Bull garage there.
On board right now with Adrian. He is currently closing a gap to Dirk Chocolate ahead. And Dirk Chocolate is in this train right now following Wisp. And that's Extreme in it as well. And we're going to have to see what comes out of this train, because Wisp 1.6 seconds away from Lamp right now. He is currently leading it, but Adrian with a good exit coming out of turn 7. Dirk Chocolate has DRS as well, but overtake and DRS in combination for this AlphaTauri right now. He has got a move alongside into turn 8. Who's going to get the better exchange through on the exit here? I think it's going to be Dirk for now. Very neatly done from Dirk there to defend off this AlphaTauri, but of course Dirk on these soft compound tires, Adrian on these mediums, and I think the tire wear is going to start to play a role soon here on the inside coming through turn 10. Ooh, Dirk holding on right now quite well, but Adrian is on the verge of making this move into P8.
Yeah, tire degradation is definitely going to become a thing, but Domi, obviously on the medium tires, almost lost it out of turn 9, took too much of the inside curve and really offset his car, but now Maxime B into the pit lane. He is following Sweet as well as Extreme and Wisp as well, but Domi looking around Crampy, it looks to the outside, switches back to the inside, and it's going to be the Williams up into P2 in this race. And we've said it before, we'll say it again, he's on those medium tires, and this strategy and this pace that Domi has in that Williams right now could prove absolutely brutal for the drivers who started this race on softs.
Yeah, now Adrian and Dirk Chocolate, they're still in this exchange right now. Dirk into 5th, Adrian in 6th, and Skybits is here as well in 7th. Jones not too far from him. And we have a massive train flowing through here in France right now. It's, of course, Misfits Racing League Tier 2 action.
Lamp just made a huge save out of turn 7, almost completely spun the car. But he's saved it, and he's actually managed to keep up with Crampy and Domi thanks to DRS, but it's Dirk Chocolate and Adrian switching positions through 8 and 9. It's going to be Adrian into 5th place, and is that Skybits as well? Is he going to be able to get past? But it's Dirk carrying so much speed out of the corner that he's back into P5. Adrian's relegated back down to P6, and Skybits and Jones, they are not far behind at all, and we've got 4 cars going in to turn 11 here. Who is going to get the better exit here is absolutely critical to maintain or gain positions. So far, everyone's staying the same. You can see Jones a little bit faster than Skybits around the corner, but not able to make the move. That's Kai Bacini and Crampy into the pit lane. Is Dirk Chocolate coming in as well? He is. So he's released Adrian. Now Jones still looking a little bit faster than Skybits. A little bit of lag from the McLaren, but now DRS on both of these cars as well as Adrian due to the DRS detection zone being before. And they're going too wide. It's Adrian and Skybits into the first turn. They're side by side through turn 2 as well. And Adrian with a spin. Jones, very quick reactions onto that brake pedal. He avoids any contact with the Alpha Tauri. But it's Yasko up into P4 now as a result of that heavy braking from the Racing Point.
Yeah, that was a wild exchange, and Yasko got a big benefit here. He's now into 4th position. Lamp is in 2nd. The Ferraris are going to be happy about it. Domi is currently leading this race. He's on those 6-lap-old medium compound tires now, and there's some drivers in this grid like Kai Bacini who are going to begin to absolutely fly and cut through this grid. Maxim B, he came in for the medium compound tires. He's coming out of turn 7 into that DRS straight of sector 2, and he has absolutely cleared that Renault coming down into 8-9 here.
It's interesting to me that Kai Bacini's opted for the hard tires here. Crampy, on the other hand, opting for the fresh mediums like Maxime B and Gadwin have done. So Kai Bacini on a little bit of an alternate strategy here.
On Dirk Chocolate, he has also come in for the hard compound tires. So these two perhaps know something we don't. Extreme came in for hards. So they are the only drivers really on these hards right now. Squid, of course, started the race on his. And Yasko right now is just trying his best to get that P3 away from Skybits right now. Coming out of the final turn, overtake DRS. Is he going to be able to close this gap? They're both on the mediums, and Jones isn't going to be looking too far away either. He has Yasko in his sights. And he might get Yasko before he gets an opportunity to go for Skybits. But he's just taking that 3-second time, yeah.
Kai Bacini and Squid, though. Squid holding him off into turn 1. Very close to contact between those two.
Yasko, Jones, a battle through turn 7 right now. Jones has overtaken that Ferrari before the straight here, and it's given this Ferrari an opportunity. He's got the DRS, a bit of a move from Jones to try and defend there. And Yasko is back through, and it may have been too soon for Jones to try and do that, but meanwhile, Kai Bacini makes it ahead on Squid, as does Maxim B, and Maxim B looking at Kai Bacini as well on the outside, inside now, excuse me, coming through 8 and 9, and he got the Mercedes as well. What a move.
Squiggly on exit here, didn't get the traction down, and he's going to want either. So, an excellently timed move on Maxime B, getting 2 positions in 1.
Wow, he's going to be real happy with that one. Of course, Cabicini with a move on the inside coming through turn 11. There's a little bit of a brush with the front wheels, but of course, Maxim B holding station in 7th for now. And he knows he knows Cabicini is not someone he can really play around with here. Kai, very fast. Meanwhile, Jones and Yasko still having an exchange. Lamp jumps onto some hard compound tires now here on lap 9.
Yeah, Yasko's move was a beautiful switchback into the hairpin, the final corner, and Lamp the last of the front runners as well on those soft tires to get off of them. But this race has been absolutely brilliant so far. And we've got a three-way battle for P10 as well. It would seem forming A-Lord leading this, but it's Wisp looking around the outside, but Gadwin's there as well. Gadwin and Wisp, they're side by side, but it's A-Lord in the way of the Red Bull who's rear-ended the Renault. And it's going to be Wisp and Gadwin past A-Lord into turn 15. And that's Wisp with a huge mistake, who's dropped back now 3 places, not only to A-Lord and Gadwin, but also to Lamp as well, who's passed A-Lord for 11th place, and he's got DRS to hunt down Gadwin.
Yeah, now Crampy and Squid having an exchange. Squid on these hard compound tires right now with Crampy. Crampy on the exit through out of 9. He gets him. He's into 8th position.
Yeah, Yasko and Jones as well. They're having a scrap into turn 12. It's the Racing Point up the inside of the Ferrari, but the Ferrari defending around the outside very valiantly. And it's the number 93 still holding on to 3rd position for the time being. But now Jones had a look up the inside, and a lockup from Yasko isn't going to cost him the position now, but DRS now from the Racing Point.
Maxim and Kai have just been having this epic exchange here through Sector 3. I've been on board with this action, and it's been wild as Yasko and Jones through turn 1 and 2. Oh, there's a little bit of contact there between both of them. They're still wheel to wheel. Nobody has taken any damage, it would seem, on either of these cars. The Ferrari out just ahead, coming down into turn 3, still wheel to wheel between both of them. Yasko still out in front of that Racing Point, except Jones back to the inside, coming through turn 5, now through 6. Who's going to have the better exit here? Who's going to have the DRS? That's going to be Jones on the rear of the Ferrari, coming through into Sector 2, rear wing. Wide open now for him. Not a lot of battery, though. He's got no energy in reserve.
Yeah, down into turn 8. It is going to be the Racing Point ahead of the Ferrari now. There's a yellow flag in Sector 2. That's the Renault of A-Lord who's come off. It's a safety car here.
Oh, wow. And that's... wow. Domi is in an absolute prime position now on these medium compound tires to get in at lead of this race. He started in 6th. Now he gets a free pit stop. What is he going to do? Is he going to go onto some hards? I have to say he's gonna. He can't go onto softs until the end, and he needs to go onto a different tire.
Yeah, surely it has to be hards to the end.
What a race start, though, that we have had here. 10 laps of racing, and it has been quite exciting to see all of the overtaking happening here around France.
Perfect timing for Domi. He came in first, and he's going to leave the pit lane in first place. Hard tyres, and they should take him fairly comfortably to the end of this race, I would imagine. You can see a lot of other people taking advantage of this safety car. Pretty much everyone on this grid taking advantage. Maxime B, a noticeable absentee for the pit lane. 5-lap old mediums. He's choosing to stay out on them. Obviously, Kai Bacchini, his tyres are going to take him to the end, so gaining the track position. But Maxime B doesn't really have that luxury. He's still going to have to pit again, you would think.
I think he's anticipating a possible second safety car. He could be saying, well, we got one. Maybe we'll get another one. Maybe.
It is possible.
Kai back into 3rd position here behind the Canadian on the hards, and he can, I think, make it to the end on those.
Yeah, and someone who's in an interesting position is Squid, who's gone for a set of mediums in the other Williams, because obviously he started this race on hard compound tires, so he couldn't finish on another set of hard. So it's interesting to me. I don't know if he's going to be able to get those mediums the whole 15 laps than he needs to. If he can't, then it might have been wiser to maybe 2-stop for softs or just stay out for a little bit on his current hards and just pit a little bit later. But it's a tricky situation for him. It came out at a good time for Domi, but not his teammate.
Dark Chocolate right now in 8th position. Of course, he is on these 4-lap-old hards. And he's also decided to stay out just as Kai has. We'll have to see how that benefits these drivers that decided to stay out on the hards. It's going to be a very unique race finish, I think, because penalties will also play a role. And there was a multitude of drivers that took 3-second time penalties here in this race.
Yeah, looking at the front of the grid, Domi, he has 1. Maxime B, 2 warnings, but no penalty to speak of. Kai Buccini, he's got a penalty. Lamp, he's got a couple of penalties to his name. Extreme, he has a penalty. Skybits as well, so a lot of these drivers, Jones with 3. Dark Chocolate's clean for the time being. Yasko as well, he's avoiding it. So Yasko and Dark Chocolate, they're in a prime position right now. No penalties to their names. Hopefully they can keep it that way for their hopes at finishing well here in Tier 2.
Well, we've talked over this season time and time again about how those 3-second time penalties, those accumulating penalties over the race can play such a role in these cases, in these safety car situations where the entire grid gets bunched up. Of course, it plays a way bigger role when it's later in the race, during the finish, because those drivers don't have as much of an opportunity to build the gaps to perhaps, invalidate those penalties that they're handed, essentially, to cancel them out. But these safety cars really make it difficult, and the drivers that keep it clean are the major benefactors here, or the major beneficiaries, of course. And Dark Chocolate is in a good position on those hards if he is clean of penalties. You can see stops on the grid right now. A couple of drivers have now it's basically split. You have a good portion of drivers on this one stop, the safety car giving them a unique opportunity, and then you have a good bunch of drivers there that have stopped twice. As Aylor leaves the session now, unfortunate that he's the first driver out of this one.
Yeah, the safety car almost halfway in this race. We're on lap 12 of 27, so still a ways to go here for on these drivers, and it's an interesting one. Everyone on these hard compound tires, well, apart from 3, but it'll be interesting to see whether we see anyone make an interesting and risky decision to go for softs towards the end of this race. We've seen that before, where one person, they think the pace is gone, switch to softs, and they can start wrecking havoc, depending on how close this grid is together, where those faster compound tires could just allow them to just steamroll past people and carve through a grid like a hot knife through butter. And it'll be interesting, as well as Maxime B, he might be that knife, because he, medium tires right now, 6 laps old. I don't think there's any way he's going to be able to take those towards the end of this race. I imagine he's going to go for the 2-stop, soft, medium, soft.
Yeah.
And Yasko, a 5-second time penalty for collision with Crampy.
It's important to keep a distance. Not entirely sure what happened there, but one thing, of course, if you're just tuning into this race, we are on lap 13 under safety car conditions. My name is Strifium. Joining me as always is Unicorn. And if you're enjoying the broadcast, think about hitting that follow button, because we do a lot of racing Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and most Saturdays following F1 weekends. Of course, this evening we still have a ton more racing action coming. We have the Tier 1 grid that kicks off at 5:15 p.m. CDT, 11:15 p.m. BST, and it is going to be a very, very intense grid. We have some very fast reserves today, and, well, just the grid in itself has been so competitive all season long. I'm very excited, and I really want to see some rain. So of course, I hope you guys tune in for that later this evening. I'll be doing that with Mikau.
Yeah, some rain would be a welcome addition, and provide I would say a bit of variety. But these races, despite being last week with Canada, all 4 races perfectly dry, but still the variety was still there. We had plenty of action, different things. Yesterday's race, completely different to this one, where we had a, shall we say, less successful safety car deployment.
Well, that was something to see, wasn't it? That was a really unique situation. Safety car in this lap. We get the call from race control. Now, hopefully nobody gets into any last moment heroics on the safety car restart here. Of course, we saw Domi in Canada last week, you might remember, with a very, very unique race restart. Coming out of that Champions chicane, he brought it almost to the line.
Yeah, that catches people off guard because they expect it to be early out of that Champions chicane. They expect the guy at the front to, you know, floor it out of the chicane to mean that everyone else behind him has to still take the chicane in here. You've got a hairpin before the start-finish straight. So again, it's a similar situation, but Domi has now labelled himself as someone who's a little bit unpredictable, maybe, from where he's going to put his foot down here.
Yeah, and it is up to him to, of course, he has to consistently pace the grid. It needs to be safely done, but he is going to be throttled down in a way here, and he's had a very good launch here, as those medium compound tires are betraying Maxime B, I think, almost immediately here.
Yeah, and most of the grid's staying in the same order here because of that hairpin, it would seem. But yeah, Maxime B, we'll have to see how he fares. He's got Kai Bicini, tonight's pole sitter, right behind him. And interesting, obviously no DRS right now, so no drag reduction system to aid these drivers to pull in towards the driver ahead. But they've still got access to ERS, and Maxime B has utilised a lot of his battery already. He's down to 65%, Kai Bicini 85% in his Mercedes, and Maxime B using even more. So the medium tyres really not playing into his hand at this stage of the race. Whether the softs that he's presumably going to switch to at the tail end of this Grand Prix are going to provide him with a bit more pace and a bit more luck, then we'll have to see.
Is breathing down Skybit's neck right now, coming down through turn 11 through into 12, and McLaren in P6 really getting caught here. Overtake in full utilization for Jones, and there's just a massive train on this restart, and who knows how it's going to go through once we get DRS. But now with a move, Jones on the outside through the final turn, a little bit of a tap there. Back on circuit now, overtake cutting to the inside now on the pit straight. Skybits looking to perhaps defend here. Jones through though, overtaking full utilization. It looks like Skybits letting off a little bit, defending to the inside, coming down through turn 2. It looks like Jones has made it stick, but of course this is going to open up opportunities for Dirk Chocolate. He gets through on Skybits as well, and now Dirk Chocolate on these hard compound tires, 8 laps old now. We'll have to see what kind of pace you can pull out on these tires to go and hunt down that racing point ahead. Of course, no DRS just yet for these racers, but there's a lot of exchanging happening and a lot of exchanges about to happen as soon as that DRS does come into play here.
Yeah, and Maxime B's energy deployment seems to have benefited actually, because he has pulled out over a 1 second gap to Kai Bicini in third place right now. And Kai Bicini seems to be being caught by Lamp. He's at least holding on. He's in fourth place in the Ferrari at the moment, but the gap only half a second separating them. Jones as well on his teammate. He's pretty close to the rear Extreme now.
Yeah, and Skybits
he's absolutely flying.
Skybits has had a big issue here as well. He's lost multiple positions this lap. Jones on the inside through 11. A little bit of a wheel brush there from the teammates. No team orders coming into play. This is very intense racing here. Skybits and Crampy having an exchange through turn 11 as well. Coming out through 12. There's a little bit more of a wheel bang here. Crampy isn't taking no for an answer here. He wants that P9 from the McLaren, but it's opened him up. That's Squid in on this exchange as well. And Squid's now into P10. Crampy's lost out, but with a switch back to the inside, now he's coming down the pit straight, overtaking full swing. They're wheel to wheel coming down the pit straight. Skybits in front of them, holding on for dear life versus these two right now. After his struggles this past lap, DRS is going to be enabled on this lap as well. And what a race we're seeing here.
Yeah, 5th down through to pretty much 14th right now. They've all got a big DRS chain, and it's Squid and Crappy still side by side. Squid's picking up a penalty as a result of these off-track limitations. It's Squid. Oh, he's just held it. He's going to have to rejoin the track safely here. And done so he has, but he's going to lose the positions to Adrian and Liam. But further up the grid, DRS now benefiting one racing point, but not the other. It's Jones looking up the inside of his teammate, late on the brakes, into turn 8, a big corner cut. But it's going to be Jones up into 5th place. Dirk Chocolate, he's having a look at Extreme, not making the move. Yasko behind him, Skybits Crampy and it's sort of spacing out a little bit. Is Squid now with ERS going to be able to breeze past Adrian? It is Squid. These medium tires, they were working for him until that spin. Whether they're overheated now or...
Oh man, what a race we're seeing here, Unicorn. There's so much exchanging through this race right now. Cotters is just hunting down Max Inkster. We have Dirk Chocolate hunting down Extreme. Skybits, Crampy, Yasko, they're in a train. Now there's an exchange between those two. Crampy ahead of Skybits, and Skybits is just not having a good time here after this restart on those hard compound tires at all. Crampy doing a little bit better with his setup to find traction on those, it would seem, but Yasko is now in 8th position, very tight to the rear of that Mercedes. That is the Dirk Merc, of course, Dirk Chocolate there. Coming down into turn 1, the Ferrari on the inside. There's a big crash. That looked like Yasko going into the rear of Extreme, and that's going to be Dirk Chocolate skating on by with Crampy, putting him under major threat, and we'll have to see where those drivers recover, but there's not going to be a safety car after that exchange. And of course, the stewards are going to want to see all the angles on that one. But of course, Dirk Chocolate into 6th position. He's on the 10-lap old hards, but Crampy wants to say something about it. He is in the Haas.
Kai Bacchini up into P2. He's caught Maxine.
Wow, neatly done from Kai, of course. Leading this race is Domi, 2.6 seconds ahead, and we'll see if Kai can pull out the pace to capture the Hungarian. But now it's Crampy versus Dirk Chocolate. They're coming through 8 and 9, and Crampy has made it stick, but who's made a resurgence here? It's Skybits. He's in 8th position, and he's less than a second away from the Mercedes as well.
Yeah, we got Lamp and Maxine B. Maxine B, his tires now really struggling. It's Lamp up the inside of turn 11, not making it through there, but the grip seems to be shifting.
Gadwin.
Towards...
Ooh, sorry to interrupt. It was Gadwin and Adrian coming wheel to wheel down through turns 10 and 11, and Gadwin trying to get a serious move, and now it's the 2 Red Bulls, 10-11, fighting off the Alpha Tauris, 12 and 13. What a race.
This race is just covered in action. You can just see on the track map there that you've just got that huge train that Crampy now is leading all of these drivers down through 13th. I've got DRS on one another, and it's the 2 Alpha Tauris now, Wisp and Adrian there. DRS enabled on both of them. And you can see ahead of them the 2 Red Bulls. Then you've got Squid. He's sort of an outlier here on these medium tires. They're going to start getting a little bit slower in the next 4 or 5 laps. But Skybits on the rear of Dirk Chocolate. He's going to be looking for a move with DRS. But Dirk, he's got DRS on Crampy to sort of help him defend against the inevitable move from the McLaren here. On the straight, it's going to be Liam looking up the left-hand side of Squid down towards turn 8. It's the inside line for the Red Bull going into the corner. But Squid's going to defend around the outside for the inside line into turn 9. And Squid holds on to 9th position for now. But on exit, you can see the speed that Liam's got here. He's going to inherit P9. And it's his teammate, Gadwin. He's looking to join the party as well through turn 10. Here's Squid holding on to the outside. Oh, and he's caught across Liam. And Liam, a big slide from the Rebel, but he's going to try and go back past his teammate at least. And they're side by side now going into turn 12. Gadwin backing out a little bit, just trying to cool this situation down. As Skybits has gone past Dirk Chocolate as well.
All of this is happening while those Alpha Tauris behind are hunting, and now it's wheel to wheel between Squid and Dirk Chocolate coming through turns 14, 15. Dirk defending with a good move there, coming and cutting across, just holding him as well as he can, giving him space though. Squid hunting down Dirk, and these Red Bulls are not impressed, and they want to get through because it's the Alpha Tauris now all tight here coming through turns 1 and 2, and this is just a fantastic race. Wisp is quite close to Gadwin now, and Squid has made it just ahead of the Mercedes coming down into turn 3. How's it going to go, and is the Red Bull going to get a move on Dirk as well? That's Liam coming down into turn 5. Very tight racing in this midfield right now, and everybody wants points.
Oh, and that's Wisp spinning out. He has lost a lot of front wing. That's the yellow flag. No safety car. That car is still drivable. But he was too close to the rear of Adrian. And now these 4 cars for what is 9th place. It's Liam and Dirk. They're battling through 8 and 9. But Liam's teammate Gadwin, he wants the Mercedes as well. So he's going to try and fight for 10th place. Both of these drivers, it's Gadwin with just a little bit more speed than the Mercedes, but Dirk is still there for turn 10. Gadwin weaving about a little bit too much, I think, but it is going to be P10 for one Red Bull, the other looking for P8 from Squid. Squid's tyres, they're not going to be feeling too good on that Williams. 8 laps old on medium tyres. Getting towards the end of the lap is Liam. A little bit of a slide out of turn 12. That's going to cost him a little bit of time to his teammate behind. And oh my goodness, this race is the race that keeps on giving.
We've been seeing a lot of those lately, Unicorn. Right now, it's Gadwin in that final points position. He has Dirk Chocolate quite close behind. His teammate ahead of him. He's got the DRS. He's not utilizing that battery. Liam is looking for a move on Squid. Down through turn 1, we have the perfect view coming off the onboard of Gadwin's car. Liam back to the inside coming out of 2. Squid drops into 9th position, and Gadwin says it's time to strike. Let's go. Down into turn 3. On the inside, switching back to the inside through turns 4 for the Williams, but into turn 5, that is the fin through, and this is causing Squid a big problem because that's Dirk Chocolate who's caught up very close to him. It's less than half a second the gaps all around right now in this battle to move up this grid.
And you can see Squid here as he's under threat from Dirk Chocolate now. He's absolutely flying by. Those tyres on that Williams, they've just lost all traction. He can't do the defensive moves that he was doing around the outside as they're side by side through turn 9. Dirk Chocolate on the inside, but it's Squid getting a much better exit. So those tyres still got something in them. But some of these moves, especially the ones that the Red Bulls, who are on slightly younger tyres than Dirk Chocolate, so they've got the most beneficial as Adrian. He's come into the fight and he's taking P11 from Dirk, but Dirk around the outside says, if you want this place, son, you're going to have to fight for a little bit more. And he defends valiantly for P11, but they all want points here, and there aren't too many points positions available for these guys down, fighting for what is about 8th place at the moment.
All of this fighting is costing them time overall here, and something to talk about in reference to time right now. Domi leading this race by a near 3 seconds right now. Kai Bacchini in 2nd, but here's a different story. Lamp in P3, he's less than 5 seconds away just by a hair, but he has Maxim barking up his rear right now in the Alfa Romeo. Less than half a second is the gap for them, and they're coming down through here on lap 21. Down through into turns 4, now through into 5, and they're going to come out of 6 and 7 here, and I think we're going to see a potential attempt here from the Canadian in a bid for that podium position.
Well, Maxime B here is in a very interesting spot because his tyres, they're not going to be feeling good at all, but if he pits now, he's going to lose so many positions just because of the proximity of this grid. If he's going to come out in about 14th place. This Yasko is out of the race. I think he's retired in the pit lane though, so that won't cause a safety car because that might have been Maxime's saving grace.
Yeah, I think it would have been for sure
pit lane. But yeah, it's an interesting race developing here, but it's Domi and Cavaccini, they're sort of on their own now.
Yeah, Maxim B losing a lot of time to Jones behind. Jones in a good position in that racing point to get a good finish for the squad. Extreme, on the other hand, he's down there in 15th position. He's not having the best experience, but of course he's just recently pitted onto some fresher medium compound tires, so he could be in quite a good position near the end of this race. And as we say
Maxime B.
Yeah, he's decided to get off the mediums.
And there's a Ferrari engineer. I was going to say mediums right now is not what I would expect a driver to go for. It is the softs for Maxime B. So maybe an attempt at fastest lap from the Alfa Romeo here. But he is down in 14th place behind this huge train of cars.
You called it earlier in this race, Unicorn. You thought that it might be him that wants to cut through this field like butter, and we just may see it. But something else to talk about, these medium compound tires versus the hards. Squid sticking very well with Dirk Chocolate right now in this fight for P9.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because we've got these battles that we've been reveling over for the past 8 laps or so. And now these guys, they're spacing themselves out a little bit, but the time they've cost themselves is the time that Maxime B is going to pounce on as Squid gets past Dirk Chocolate for P9 a little bit cleaner up the inside of turn 8. No defense from the Dirk Merc for the time being. He's still clinging on to the final points position though. But Maxime B, he's going to want to hunt down, but he's only got 5 laps and it's a very tall order. He's 8 seconds behind the nearest car, and that's his teammate in P13, who is going up the inside of Adrian, as we say that. And Cotters, side by side, Adrian damaged very late on the brakes from the AlphaTauri, but it is still P12 for Adrian for the time being.
Yeah, Adrian with a little bit of front right damage, no end plate on that car. So Cotters has a little bit more pace available to him with a front wing fully intact here, and we still have such fighting coming through this grid right now. Dark Chocolate, again, in this exchange with Squid. He's going to take back 9th position, coming down through turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, Maxime B, about 1.5 seconds, I think, gained on that first lap. And he's going to struggle to close it, but it is possible. You can see the cars in the distance, and he is flying very quickly. It's another second gained. Is he going to be able to do this? It's going to be close, I think. He sets the fastest purple sector 1, so he might get fastest lap here, but that might be the only accolade he gets this evening.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, penalties and everything aside, where he's able to land here in this Alfa Romeo, as there's another exchange in the middle of this grid. It's Liam into 6th position as he gets ahead of Skybits, and these Red Bulls have been charging through the field all race. Gadwin has now caught up with the McLaren as well. So much action.
Those at the top have a lot of penalties, and then the outlier, Liam, completely clean in P6 right now.
Ooh,
he
so
could be on for a very good finish here.
Yeah, we could see a jump big time.
Because those drivers ahead of him, some of them have got 9 seconds, double digits in terms of how many penalties they've got. So Liam could be in a very, very strong position right now, but behind him, Skybits, he doesn't want to lose too much time to this battle with the McLaren.
It's just been a wild, wild race. Of course, if you guys have been enjoying the race, hit that follow button. We have a lot of racing happening here on the channel. Of course, later tonight, in just about 55 minutes, we have the Tier 1 race here around Paul Ricard. It's, of course, around 10 for them, and that is going to be a sight to see. I think we're going to have a wild race for that one. Gadwin right now, he's caught up with Skybits, coming down into 8-9. Is he going to make the move here? Is he going to get the lunge? He holds it real tight to that McLaren. Is he going to get it around the outside? Skybits defending as hard as he can here. It's tight. It's tight coming out through, but Gadwin, with a great exit, gets the McLaren coming out into turn 10.
And a little bit further down the grid, Maxime B has just taken 2 people down into turn 8. Not only his teammate Connors, but Adrian as well. So he's really charging, and he has no penalties as well, so it'd be interesting to see where he finishes, not only on track, but also after all the penalties are applied, as Crampy gets another penalty.
Cotters has dispatched Adrian as well through turn 11. The Alphas are 12-13 right now on the board, but Maxim on these fresh red ringed tires, he has been absolutely flying. Next on the list is Max Inkster, and just ahead of him is Squid, and everybody on these tires ahead of them. Ooh, I think we're going to get your wish, Unicorn. Maxim B on a charge, overtake. Not DRS just yet, but he's going to get it soon. And if he holds well, it's going to go well for him, especially considering Max Inkster's just overtaken Squid for P10. So they're fighting, and this is just going to be fantastic for the Canadian.
Yeah, he could just sit here and wait for these guys to battle it through these turns, and then he's just going to get DRS and breeze past them. He might even do exactly what he did last lap and get 2 people down into turn 8, but he's not waiting for turn 8. He is going straight up the inside of Squid in turn 6 strip. He has dispatched him quickly, and he's still going to hit DRS. Look at the speed he's got coming out of turn 7, and the Haas has absolutely nothing in his arsenal to defend against such pace. There is the Alfa Romeo Maxime B into 10th place, back into the points, and as far as I'm aware, he is still penalty free. And there's only 2 laps to go.
Good call from the Alpha. He's got a ton of pace right now. Dirk Chocolate's going to have a big problem in a couple seconds here. Or, well, a couple sectors, I'll say, at the very least in racing terms. But here's the one thing to talk about. Maxim B jumping into that final points position. He was holding on to that fastest lap. Now that he's made it into the top 10, that makes it 2 points for him if he holds on to 10th. If he jumps into 9th, though, that's 3. So he's got that additional single point that you get from having that fastest lap inside the top 10. And I think he's going to get Dirk here, because Dirk, on these 18-lap-old hards, is a big gamble. Squid jumps into the pit lane, so he's not liking those mediums after 15 laps. So we'll just have to see what kind of pace Maxim has here as we are now on the penultimate lap of this race.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think Maxime B, in terms of penalties, is ahead of Skybits. So it's very interesting to see where he's going to finish up. I think he might also be just behind Gadwin, who's got 8 seconds of penalties, I believe. So he might even jump him as well. So Maxime P might be just off the top 5, if not in it.
Dark Chocolate's a sitting duck here, Unicorn. We had an aerial shot coming through the first sector, and look at the carry coming down into 8-9. He's on the inside. He's going to have so much more traction here. He can just go where he wants in comparison to Dark Chocolate right now. He is into 9th. Now 5.5 seconds the gap ahead, and as you said, no penalties for Maxim B. It's going to be a very interesting sight to see as these front runners are about to cross the line into the final lap of this race. Of course, 19 drivers began here for Tier 2 round 10. There is 17 left in the running, and a lot of penalties to shake things up. Come, of course, the checkered flag.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yoda, obviously, he's got access to telemetry here. And apparently Maxime B has a 3-second time penalty that's not showing up on the in-game race director. So that may or may not play a role, depending on whether it exists or not. So telemetry externally is showing it, but in the game it isn't being displayed. But now, the final lap, can Maxime B do any more damage to these drivers? And Skybits up ahead is going to try and fight Gadwin on this last lap. As he gets another 3-second time penalty, that could be absolutely critical here. It might be the final nail in Skybits' coffin as to whether he can stay ahead of Maxime B.
Yeah, and what you're watching right now on the timing tower, 5 seconds is the gap to P8, but Maxim B isn't fighting for P8 right now. He is just fighting the gap. He has no penalties, and he could fall anywhere within that top 6 right now. As a result, as long as he's able to bring down that gap as much as he can, and he's doing a good job right now coming down through, but he hasn't got a lot left in the tank in that car. He's got a fuel light on. He's got no battery at his disposal. He's used it now on these softs to get where he's gotten. So it's going to be a very unique finish in this race. Of course, Domi now is in the final turn of this race. He, in the Williams, on the one stop, is going to come home. He's going to take the checkered flag. Crossing first here in Le Castellet. It's the French Grand Prix around Paul Ricard. Kai Bacchini crosses second here, after a very, very unique drive from him. And of course, Lamp in the Ferrari, he's going to finish third here, with Jones in fourth. And now it's about to jump big time as Liam has jumped into the podium. Wow. Maxim B has jumped into 6th position. It's like we said, we were going to get a big jumble up of positions come the finale of this race, and now we've seen it. The Canadian Liam into 3rd. Wow.
Yeah, Dark Chocolate as well, 8th. That final penalty Skybits got, that relegates him down to 9th behind Dirk. So crazy. Crampy as well. I don't know where Crampy finished on track. He was in about 4th or 5th, I think, and he's down into 10th with the penalties. So a crazy reshuffling of the order across the checkered flag.
That was a wild, wild race. That was a lot of overtaking. Not a lot of drama. It didn't look like there were too many on-circuit exchanges. It was just, we had the one safety car. Just wild, wild stuff here.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And Domi, a well-deserved victory. We didn't really talk about him much during the race because he was just off doing his own thing, as well as Kai Bacchini, in all fairness to him. Both of them just utterly dominant. The strategy of Domi starting on the mediums paid off, though, especially with that safety car and the timing for him in the Williams. But
yeah, it was fantastic. Of course, guys, we are going to be rating a viewer of the community in just a moment's time before we come back in about 45 minutes for Tier 1 Racing. We'll be back right here on the Misfits Racing League channel. But of course, once again, the Williams of Domi with the race win from 6th on this grid. Kai Bacchini from pole. He's dropped into 2nd position here after a very dynamic race. And of course, the Canadian of Liam After a spectacular drive and a little bit of drama seeing him spin, he finishes on the podium regardless, and he started this race in 4th. You'll love to see it. Lamp with his full-time debut over at Ferrari in 4th position. Jones in 5th, Maxim in 6th, Gadwin in 7th, Dirk Chocolate in 8th, with Skybits in 9th. Crampy rounds out your top 10 drivers here, and the final points finishers are that, of course, the Haas rounding them out there. His teammate, Max Inkster, in 11th. What a race. Just a fantastic race overall. You can see there the stop strategies for the drivers, the tires utilized. France causing enough of the warnings, you can see. Drivers trying to utilize as much of the circuit as they can. Just a fantastic race overall, though, and it really gets me excited to see Tier 1 racing in just a short time.
Yeah, this track has just been delivering so far this week, and like you said, I think the uncaged nature of France compared to the tracks we've had in previous weeks has just sort of tempted these drivers, and they're able to just battle freely. You know, it's less punishing, and they can just, you know, they're not going to get damaged if they run wide, but they might get that 3-second time penalty, and we've seen that plenty of times here this evening. But that doesn't detract from the fact that was an absolutely brilliant race.
Yeah, it was a great race. It was a great race indeed. I'm really happy with how that went for the Tier 2 grid. Really sets the bar high for the Tier 1 racers as well. And with all of that, guys, if you're looking to join the Misfits Racing League, look no further. The Discord link is in the chat. Jump on in. It's a great community. Even if you're not looking to race in the league or be the fastest driver ever and you just want a group of friends to play with, the Misfits family is waiting. I swear, it's fantastic. It's been a year now that I've been a part of this great community, and I love it to death. So check it out. Of course, guys, if you enjoyed, hit that follow button. Thank you so much for all the bits, follows, and subs today, guys. We're going to be back live very soon, and with all of that being said, we are going to jump on over and raid a member of the community. Let's take a look at who we can jump in on and raid. Thanks a lot, guys. We will see you in a short time. And that wraps it up. And what a race. What a race. See you guys soon.